A lot of the time when I'm discussing rain world in various communities, something that often inevitably comes up is the reindeer, which are in farm arrays, which, strictly speaking, you don't need to use to get into subterranean and end the game. But for a lot of players, they are kind of like a necessary roadblock to overcome. If you don't know what they are these large creatures with long legs in farm arrays, and their primary use is that they're completely docile. You grab onto their antlers and you ride them over the dangerous grabby grass. I forget what they're called. The little purple or sometimes like a neon, like whitish red. If they spawn with their like legacy upgrade or whatever. Um, so here we are in this is like the upper rightish of farm arrays if you're looking at a map or the interactive map. It's like maybe 3 zones below where you can go to enter Sky Islands, and there's a shelter there. You don't have to start there in order to pull off what I'm doing here, but this is the best unbroken stretch with which to showcase just how it is you can reliably uh, get the reindeer to cooperate. Maybe like 75%, 80% of the time, maybe more if you stock like 3 spore puffs like I've done here, which I already had, but as you saw, we traveled by a little cache of them, so you don't need to grab them in advance. They're plentiful. And I have one in my stomach. It's important to remember that you can store things in your stomach. It's kind of easy to forget if you aren't traveling parts of the world where you might need to stockpile like a pearl for later or whatever. So we're about to come up on this part here, which is the starting zone for the hunter. I've chosen to do monk just because I wanted there to be as few enemies as I'm showing this off. So you'll see here that the reindeer immediately beeline for me just for the pure fact that I had the spore puffs in my hand, and it won't always start right where you need it to be like that. But we'll showcase what to do in other situations later. And I use that little ledge up on the right to help me get onto his antlers, whereas otherwise you would need to place the spore puffs right down to get him to kneel down a little bit further. So as you can see here, I've got all my spore puffs left, and I grabbed onto and tried to get kind of to the front of his antlers. I don't know if that really matters if he sees that you're like slightly in front of him, and it's like a carrot on a stick type deal with like an animal running kind of thing. I don't know if that matters, but that's what I do, and it seems to help. So here on the top layer of farm arrays, there's plenty of shelters, one of which is right here, and there's food that you can get right up there. So you can restock if you really need to. Like if you had to use a bunch of spore puffs to get the reindeer to stop glitching or whatever, you can make a pit stop there. But I didn't need to for this particular thing. Just know that that's there if you're trying to get to subterranean from here. But otherwise, you can just keep chugging, and the reindeer shouldn't have any issues here. Um, a lot of you seem to have a lot of problems with the reindeer turning around and like stopping randomly or whatever. And I find that if you try to just not guide him too much with dropping these puffs or throwing them, that shouldn't. You should not mess with his AI, basically. You should try and make it so that he's moving just like vanilla, as if the scene is new, like you just woke from your last cycle. You don't want to confuse him with too many funny ideas. Now, in this bottom part here, there's another transition that leads to another safe zone. It's a little bit more treacherous. There's like spiders. If you're on Hunter, there's like spitter spiders over there, which can be kind of nasty. But it's there if you need it, and there's more spore puffs. But there's also more spore puffs right at the top here. So once you get past any potential hazards, as I've done here, and you get up into this next area, uh, you have to use this little ledge to get up on the right here. And for Hunter, this isn't that big of a deal, or if I had a spear, it wouldn't be a big deal. But Monk has a lot of trouble getting across here. But strictly speaking, you don't need to, as we're going to see here, because I got lucky again with another reindeer spawn. But if I was pressed for time, if I didn't have a good cycle, this would be a spot where, I could throw one of these against the right wall in order to get the deer to come quicker if I thought it was on a bad cycle. But as it is here, I'm just going to use this ledge here, and I should have jumped a little bit earlier, but you can just kind of wiggle your way out of it if stuff like that happens. Not always. One time I got trapped in there with a lizard, with a reindeer pressing in on us, and that was really bizarre. But as you can see here, finally, I felt like the reindeer wasn't going to move for whatever reason, even though I hadn't dropped a spore buff or anything. So that's when you want to not drop your spore puff, but actually throw it, and it'll explode against whatever terrain it hits. And the reindeer will just move over to it, sniff it for a little bit, get sad, and then keep moving on its course. And you want to try not to throw it into the grass, because although the reindeer can harmlessly step over it, it can come fairly close to actually getting trapped by it, as you can see here. And our guy's a little bit clumsy, but that's okay. And of course, I still have spore puffs here. I was stingy with them. If he happens to stop or whatever, I've got one in my stomach as well that I can use to help guide him along. It's not that big of a deal. You want to avoid doing that kind of thing if you can help it. You want him to move of his own accord and everything. But this is the end, right before you can get into the subterranean exit. We're going to give him a little reward because he and his brethren were pretty cooperative, and he's going to give me a nice, serene little look back, like, oh, I gotta walk all over all that nasty grass again. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I hope I've showcased everything that might help with the reindeer, even though I didn't have to drop a puff at any point to get him to bend down further. I did demonstrate that right at the very end, just so you know that his antlers do dive down a little bit further so you can grab onto if you don't have a ledge nearby. That's something I usually have to do, and I just didn't for whatever reason. So we're just going to grab a little snack here, and then we're going to go to bed. Thanks for watching.